Opening up the album is I Want You to Love Me, which goes in almost a Buddhist direction with its songwriting approach. The gentle piano composition is a great backdrop to Fiona's vocals. She sings about how her past made her into the person she is now, and also gets existential. There are lyrics in which she acknowledges that she's living in a body that will eventually perish, but in the meantime she still wants a physical love. I also love her weird, scraggly vocalizations to end off the track, capping a pretty wonderful opener. Centralizing around an inspirational figure in Fiona's developmental years is SHAMEIKA. Fiona is describing her hardships at first, including bullies and kind of dealing with external influences, before listing her accolades and accomplishments, such as her holy trinity being her dog, her man, and her music. Now, Fiona clearly states in the song that SHAMEIKA wasn't her friend, nor was she gentle, but the one thing she says to Fiona is what probably inspired her to be persevering. I love the pianic differentiation on the track. The bouncy keys during the verses make me want to tap dance, and the punctuative key hits during the chord refrain adds an intensity to the sound. The storytelling is fantastic, and the old school production method makes this an amazingly depthful track. Coming off of two piano-centric instrumentals, I welcome the slow rural residence feel that Fetch the Bolt Cutter employs, helped with some dog and cat sounds in the background. At first I thought the song was about a one-sided relationship Fiona was in, which resulted in her being constantly undermined and undervalued. But on my second listen I realized she was kind of describing her struggles with, I think, music media. She describes the many tactics used to undermine her, like saying she cries too much on her songs in comparison with other artists, and constantly making her question her music ability. But the chorus is telling the listener that how she found a way and will to get her out of this torrid situation. Another superbly written and performed song. This song is about a time where Fiona was dragged to a dinner only to be used like a chew toy, and she rightfully repels the disrespectful notion by calling them out while standing her ground and refusing to be quiet. The lyrics about helping the bodies that the subject in question steps over was pretty funny and an incredible way to embarrass that person. Like I wasn't even there and I felt cringed. The poignant instrumental is great and backs Fiona's irked vocals in a regally tense song. Here we have an oddly scholarly singer-songwriter track about the unjust privileges that certain people have that enrage Fiona. Things like growing up in a stable home, their height, having no sworn enemies, and also the manner of how these people market their lives as like their only means to success. I also like that Fiona understands the endless war cycle she'll be in if she retaliates in an equal fashion. I don't know if the collegiate tone was intentional or not, but for me it gives itself a unique setting amongst the track list, especially with the oddly catchy mantra sung throughout the entire song. Evil as a relay sport. I like the keyboard rhythm on this track with the bombastic drums, even though I personally wish there was a bit more to it. The songwriting here is great. I like the spin on the rack slang that Fiona uses, describing a relationship where she is carrying it with all these extra efforts to keep it going, but the person in question has more of a loving relationship with his guitar than with Fiona. The interesting dynamic between Fiona's self-sufficiency and the significant other's negligence is well fleshed out and gives Fiona more of a fulcrum for how much she loves others even though they will never love her back in the same way. I think it's an interestingly written song. The production features this overbearing percussive rhythm and almost nothing else. The bare instrumental, however, has some shifting cadences that make the song sound more dynamic. Fiona is the centerpiece of this track, singing mildly and wildly about this weirdly growing friendship through empathy or relating to another person's pain. I think she is describing a relationship where two people are dating one person who ends up cheating on them both with each other and the certain desires Fiona expected from the relationship at first. Then she becomes more concerned with the person who was also being cheated on and her well-being, knowing full well that it is improbable for both of them to actually be friends because of this situation. The extent of the songwriting on this song constantly has my interest piqued because I can draw so many different conclusions from it, which adds a lot of replay value for me. Coming off of a song which I interpreted to be the mentality of two women being cheated on, Ladies adds a lot more depth to that theme. Instrumentally, I like the easygoing piano melodies and the heavenly vocal harmonies in the background. The overarching message is to not let men pit women against each other through emotionally manipulative narratives. Fiona's didactic vocals are trying to logically explain why women shouldn't be torrid to each other if a man is the one at fault, stating that it's not a competition and not to endlessly compare yourself to others for a patriarchal sense of validity. But I also love that Fiona is aware that this message is one not all women will heed, with the outro providing a thoughtfully ambivalent track. Moving on to Heavy Balloons, which tackles depression in a unifying manner. The assortment of metaphors and similes used in the songwriting illustrates a lot of thematic imagery when talking about such a heavy topic. Every time one is used, it props various images into my head that somehow connect to one another. I love the raucous chorus, and the bass groove-laced percussion sounds great. This track is incredibly well refined and well performed. I think the subtle touches that Fiona is able to put on such a modernized, ubiquitous topic is pretty interesting. This, in my opinion, is the most accessible song on the record in terms of its melodic structures. Fiona is singing over a woodsy percussive jazz instrumental about monogamy, how long it lasts, the struggles, the effect time has on the relationship, are all bullet points for her case that long-term monogamy isn't a guaranteed thing. She even states on the chorus that love's gravity will pull these cosmonauts back down to Earth eventually. Cosmonauts continues the album's thematic motifs with a very imaginative songwriting, carving a special niche in the track listing. It sounds like something I would have heard in Outer Wilds. Fiona is straight up spitting on this track vocally, because in turn the song ends up getting very dark and personal. Fiona's fast-tempered delivery in the first half of the track over a learned percussive instrumental is describing the plight of a woman who is around an infallibly cruel man. Multiple mistresses treating their wives worse than guests, and doing a lot of manipulative action to take advantage of their drive and ambition, being, I assume, wanting to be a star. This makes me think of old Hollywood executives that use their status and wealth to abuse those who would do anything for their dream, like Harvey Weinstein or Kevin Spacey. The line about being raped in the same bed that the man's daughter was born in is a very dark situation, referring that the sex that took place was more of a one-sided desire than a consenting experience. Some pretty heavy stuff, if you ask me. Manic is the word I would use to describe this track, because it is like I'm listening to someone hysterically grieving in real time. I think the song is about fake scenarios that Fiona created in her head after going through an emotional event, I think, which is a breakup, seemingly thinking that everyone around her hates her. The manner that she's able to concisely develop her statement about continuing a relationship while repeating these hurtful, untrue mantras is incredible. I do think an abrasive edge to the song overall would have helped better accentuate the complicated and manic themes that are on play here, but I still thought it was very enjoyable. Usually for songs that overly repeat the same vocal, like melodies or the verses or the hooks, I wouldn't enjoy as much, because I would air grievance that the faux brevity that the track has doesn't add a whole lot, nor is it like really satisfying to me personally. However, On I Go is a very rare exception. I love the marching feeling I get from the way Fiona is chanting alongside the percussive heavy instrumental. The chant is recited in full repetition until she audibly messes up her words and you can hear her react. This song is about the journey to the destination, one of the many psyches used to will people to a goal, and I think it's insane how much mileage I got from this song, and serves as a beautifully fitting end to this album. After 8 years, Fetch the Bolt Cutter is a tremendous album to further bolster Fiona Apple's adamantium discography. There are plenty of new ideas on this album that are able to retain the intricacies and the rawness that Fiona is well known for. The songwriting all talks about love and hardship, but never in a way to repeat itself or lose impact due to how many times it is used throughout the record. Every song has a unique feeling, a unique story, and a unique theme that makes it rich in its entirety. A minor issue I had was I think a few songs would have benefited from more instrumentation or more of an edge to it to really help sell me on some of these songs, but even then I think it's an incredible album and just another great Fiona Apple record. I give it a